Hi, Mark Shepard here from ModernJedi.com with another quick tip to help you master your mind for a change and defeat the dark side in your personal and professional life. In our last tip, I talked a little bit about phobias, and I have something that's kind of a very helpful thing, and I don't have time in this quick tip to explain all of it, but I want to just show you really quickly something that's kind of cool. It's called tapping or emotional freedom technique, and we're going to use the moth phobia as an example. All right, so you want to tap on the karate chop spot and repeat 3 times. Even though I'm afraid of moths, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I'm afraid of moths, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I'm afraid of moths, I deeply and completely accept myself. And by the way, I actually did this and it worked. So you do 3 times the setup phrase, and then you tap right where your nose and eyebrow come together and focus on the thing you're afraid of. I'm afraid of moths. Moth, 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 moth. Side of the eye. Moth, 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 moth. Under the eye. Moth, 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 moth. Under the nose. Moth, 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 moth. Dent of your chin. Moth, 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 moth. Your collarbone. Moth, 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 moth. And under your arm. Moth, 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 moth. And the top of your head. Moth, 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 moth. All right? And then you check in after you do one of those and just notice, did the intensity go down? Now, there's a lot more to it, and there's more to learn, but that's it. I only have time for a quick tip. Mark Shepard from ModernJedi.com. Master your mind for a change. Go ahead and subscribe to this channel because more tips are on the way. Thanks.